See you down there. Yeah, my brother.
Have fun. See you in a few.
Let's fucking get it. All right, 3, 2, 1. See ya.
Hello, friends. You're listening to Exit Point,
a podcast about the advancement of base jumping and the exploration of its culture.
Join us for valuable insights and gripping stories from some of the world's top adventure athletes.
Oh my God, that's the sickest thing I ever did in my life! Woo!
When you're saying your name in English, do you say David or do you say David?
Everyone asks me that question and I don't fucking get the question. For me, you say it with your accent.
Okay.
I grew up like with foreigners saying my name, so I respond to David. I say David in French, but when I introduce myself in English, I am David.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever language, and I say David.
Yeah. All right.
I just adapted.
You were in Spain when you said that.
David, sí.
David.
Sí, soy David.
There's
David Laffargue.
There's like a level of douchebaggery though when you say when you're speaking in English and you go, "Oh, I just was in Paris."
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So like,
but if
just
I
say
speak
Paris.
In French, if I speak French, I don't like. Alors j'étais à Los Angeles. You know, it's.
Right.
But I think it's also weird. Well, if I say in French, if I say in English, oh, so I was in Paris. It doesn't flow.
No,
it doesn't flow. I just go with whatever language I am, and I just the same way you adapt the words, I adapt the pronunciation. You know.
Yeah.
If you translate, you also can translate the accents. Whatever flows.
Well, anyway, I'm happy to have you on the mic, man. Like this has been a long time coming. We've talked a lot about this. So finally you're in my neighborhood and we can do this in person. So really great to have you, man.
Yeah, I'm very happy also to do it in person.
You're a pretty infamous base jumper. Like you're well known in the community. You've got a very popular YouTube channel and your Instagram is on fire. But can you introduce yourself to people who may not know who you are?
So I'm David. I'm a full-time base jumper since now 13 years. I do courses. Base jumping has been my entire life since I started. And that's
here you are. You were an instructor. You're now also something of a professional skydiver as well.
I'm slowly going on that slippery slope. Yeah.
Soon you'll be paragliding. Whoa, that's when you see some grays maybe in that beard. You're going to be hitting up a paraglider.
Guess what? I'm going to learn paragliding in November. It's planned already.
Wow. Okay.
Soon retirement, my friend.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today is our sport and our community, whatever you want to call it, our group of misfits that all like to jump off cliffs with single parachute systems seems to be going through another time of growing pains, so to speak. And I think that you as someone who's an instructor and you as someone who's very active both socially and in the activity, I think it'd be great to have you like give me a finger on the pulse. But before we do that, I want to hear a little bit more about you and like why base jumping and what got you involved.
I can't really remember when was the first time I started looking into base jumping. I just remember that I had a phase where I was obsessed with it. I don't remember what triggered it, but suddenly I started documenting myself about it, not thinking I was going to do it, but just out of curiosity for that activity. And by entertaining that thought and this curiosity, I slowly got hooked in. And never left it since.
So you maybe saw some imagery online, saw a video or something like that. You don't actually remember where it was, but then you knew you became obsessed about it. Okay. That seems like to be the case with a lot of us. Who was the people that you looked up to when you were learning how to jump? Who did you see as a mentor and who helped you along the way?
So I didn't see anyone as a mentor because I'm self-taught. Base jumping, in my case, happened. In a way, maybe not in the most intelligent way, but it happened. And I never had a mentor or someone I could refer to. I remember the person whose book triggered my decision to start base jumping, and it was Doug's. At that time where I was all consumed by that obsession without knowing if I will do it one day. I ordered his book, Confession of an Idiot. Read it twice. And when I finished reading it the second time, I was in Thailand, not so far from Malaysia. And I decided to take a night bus to Kuala Lumpur to see the KL Tower because there were some images of it in the book. And I bought a visit in the KL Tower, went up with the book. I was comparing the images in the book with what I could see out of the window. And I spent a solid 2 hours there watching through the window. And I thought, shit, I got to do that one day. One day I will be a base jumper. And one day I will meet this guy. And fun fact is that exactly 2 years later, I was doing a two-way from the KL Tower with Dukes.
That's amazing.
It's one of the good things of our sport is being able to meet everyone regardless of their experience. Like if I was passionate about football, what would be my chances to meet Ronaldo, you know?
Impossible, yeah. Yeah, you'd have to be at the top of the heap, one of the best in the world.
Exactly.
And that doesn't have to be the case. Yeah, in base jumping, it's really accessible to meet the people at the top of the sport, like Dukes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so from there, if there wasn't a lot of people that mentored you at the beginning, like maybe we could even bring it into current times. Who have been the people that have influenced you in your decision making, how you see the sport, and maybe that you look at with a bit of admiration?
I don't think I have any big name that I can relate to and say, oh, that was my inspiration. I've never been a fan of performers, not because I dislike it, but I have like no interest in you know, I'm not really impressed by big stunts or anything like this. But I was lucky that at my beginnings, I found a group of friends which had not much more experience than me, but they were nerds about the sport. And they knew a bit more than me. They knew about how a parachute works. They knew about rigging. They had like different theories about packing, about how things work, etc. And they were keen to research. And I think that group has influenced me to become myself a sort of nerd that gets interested in technique, in safety. And it has influenced a lot my jumping. I think more than role models, the group of friends you choose to jump with influences your jumping. And in my case, I think they influence me in a very positive way.
So being nerds, calculating. Is being calculating another way for saying a nerd?
Yeah, probably. But sometimes we will like take time to work and research topics that were not that important. So that's where, just for the sake of researching, and that's being a nerd to me,
okay.
You know? And just to give you a little example on how nerds we were when we were trying to decide which was the best handheld technique, we took an Excel file where we gave names to all the handheld technique we knew, and we did each of us a certain number of test jumps with every handheld technique, videoing it, seeing which was the most efficient, and by collecting data, we decided of which was the most efficient, and this is until today the one I use. So yeah, this like, and I don't think we did it because we were trying to revolutionize the sport. I just think it was fun to do it.
Yeah, that is nerdy.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, we're talking about something that could potentially mean the difference between life and death on a low jump. So I'm curious, what is your handheld technique?
It's hard to give it a name. Mushroom style with a little bit of mesh sticking out to have it pre-inflated.
So you grab the base of the pilot chute at the mesh and then draw your hand all the way towards the nylon, kind of shake it out a little bit, and then fold the nylon, the webbing.
No. Only touch the mesh, and I leave a little bit of mesh untouched,
exposed.
Yeah, and you have like a kind of pre-inflation.
Right.
I don't like you have some people using only the attachment point of the PC to completely inflate the PC, which is an extremely efficient technique, but I've seen it gone wrong when executed poorly. So I went for something that was not as good but more reliable. Yeah, I am globally. I'm not for I mean, we're going a bit into detail there, but I don't like having the pilot chute completely packed in the end, because you're bringing handheld back to a store jump.
Right.
I mean, you're not in the BOC, but you have the efficiency of a store jump. Generally, you have a big pilot chute which inflates in more time if it's stored. So I either go fully stored or I have a pre-inflated pilot chute, but I don't do that in between where you have the entire PC wrapped in your hand.
So I asked you earlier on about why base jumping, and you told me about how you became obsessed really before you did it. So what about now, as you're years into the sport? What is it that keeps bringing you back?
Definitely not the same thing than 13 years ago, because with time, the vision you have of it is a bit different, and the passion evolves. I think I've accomplished everything I wanted to do. There is no type of jumping that I'm still like dreaming of that is unachieved. The only thing I could do more now is just take more risk. I've been a lot in urban jumping. I've done a lot of two-piece tracking, a shitload of onesie. I've been obsessing a lot about the wingsuit lately. So apart from taking more risk, I don't have much more to discover, or maybe new exits. Now it's just I think my passion is driven by the activity in itself, what it's becoming, bringing new people into it, just trying to make the sport evolve.
There's something really amazing about new people in the sport, like the amount of stoke that they have, and it kind of reminds you about how amazing it actually is. Like after years, you can be a little bit jaded, and it can be sort of repetitive, and there's nothing like people who have, just doing it for the first time or within the first, couple hundred jumps, where it's like that energy is so infectious and amazing.
Totally. And during the courses, I do not jump at the bridge because I'm already very busy instructing, and I don't have interest jumping the bridge anymore. But there is one jump I will never ever miss during the course, is the very first one, because I get to land very soon after the students, and I can see them frothing, like the energy, like, they're scared the first time, and you're like, okay, so are we doing it again? And they are on fire, and you don't want to miss that part.
Yeah, that's so good. When did you feel like instruction was something that you wanted to be a part of?
So I had curiosity about instruction. I've always liked helping out people in the sport. When I lived in Lauterbrunnen, even though I was not an instructor, every time a beginner will arrive and want to see Yellow Ocean or La Mousse or the new exit, I will take that person. I took a lot of joy sharing knowledge, probably because I had no mentor, and I was very thankful for the people who helped me along the way, and I wanted to bring the same to others. I asked Dukes to shadow a course in 2016, and he actually asked me to help out on the course, and I really liked the experience and bringing people from zero to hero, and I was like, wow, it's something that I started dreaming of, but I didn't feel legit to do it.
Some imposter syndrome was present.
Totally. And the person, it's Simon Perriard, that just insists, like, why don't you do it? And I remember in end of 2017, for a month, he's like, so David, when are you going to do your base school? And he was repeating it. And he basically managed to help me to say out loud that I wanted to do it, but I was, a total imposter syndrome, and I decided to go for it. Yeah.
He pulled it out of you.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You're at a point where you've been involved in the sport, and it was almost exclusively mentor-mentee relationships that got you into base jumping. Of course, there were schools in the U.S., and then Dukes had his course, but was still very young at the time.
No, I remember Dukes thought about his course after I started, because in 2013, when we met in KL, we were in Thailand after, and he told me, hey, I have this idea of this course. It's going to be big, and LTBJ was just a thought at this time.
Yeah, okay. But I remember I hate saying community but we're a group of people that that have similar interests and activity. So I'm going to just stick with community. Our community was quite hard on professional schools at the beginning.
Oof. Yeah. They hated it. There was it was one of the regular debates that was like school or not schools, and people were very emotional about it, let's say. I do think Dougs changed that, because he came with a course that didn't resemble any of the ones that existed before. It was that more jump, was more professional, was bigger. I mean, no offense to courses of before, but he did something different. And when he did it, I think that because what he was doing was so much more professional and new and different, people didn't really say anything negative about it. And then after that, I think that people went with that standard. And I do think that his course changed the course of base jumping.
Well, I mean, that he was much later than like Jimmy and Marta, for example. Like, they had been doing it for years in the United States, but it was specifically for slider down, right?
Exactly. I think, and maybe, again, could be an ignorance of my part, but I don't think I had seen anyone going with a course that will do bridge, Brento, Lauterbrunnen in such a short amount of time, with that many jump, with rental rigs. I don't think I had seen anything so big prior to that. With also so many, he was showing like a lot of techniques, like and back jumps, PCA static line, and I'm not sure I've seen other courses bringing so much onto the table at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as far as slider down activity goes, their course, Apex, from very early on was doing all of those techniques. But then, of course, they didn't have access to terminal cliffs. And so that whole element moving forward, as far as like the, in air quotes, progression was missing. But
yeah, there was some, like basically they did cover those stages, but long time apart, not as a whole package. And I do think him bringing all this together at once completely changed the course. Hey, in 2 weeks, you can become that and have done that much. And I think it drew a lot of people, and it changed a bit the way things were done.
And then also the school in Sherrog. I bring this up because I had a conversation recently about like that wasn't really a base jumping course. It was more of like, how do you jump this particular object, and that's it, right?
Exactly. And the course in Chirag is not a base jumping course in itself. It's just, hey, how do you survive exit 6? And some people mention the base course, and I think we should be very careful which words we use for it. Even the prices of this course reflects that, it's 10 times cheaper than a normal base course. And I don't think they pretend to be a base course. So it's have to be very careful if you go there intending to do that, to understand what you're doing and what you can and cannot do after.
Yeah. I think this conversation, if we were to have it a couple of years ago, would go much different. You're a really funny guy. You're goofy. You make a bunch of really funny videos. But again, I think we're kind of at this difficult period in base jumping. And you as a personality, well, you talked about being a nerd earlier, and I'll tell you, like, I'm a serious nerd as well. Like, when I was never good at math or science and was pretty good with reading and writing. Loved Shakespeare. And in his plays, he has this archetypal character called the Fool. And this sounds terrible to call you a fool, but it's more like a court jester. And this court jester, like Feste in Twelfth Night, or actually called the Fool in King Lear, he would bring humor to these very powerful characters and had the freedom to criticize them through his humor. And he always had really amazing insight where others were unable to actually have the balls to talk about it. And I see you like this Fool.
I really take it as a compliment.
Good, because it's meant that way. So again, like you really have your finger on the pulse of base jumping right now. Tell me, what is the state of education in base jumping, and what's happening right now that's leading to so many fatalities and accidents?
So I think every sport go through phases. If you look at the history of aviation, paragliding, any kind of sport. I had some friends who do parkour who made a comparison as well that was quite relevant. Every activity goes through phases. Where sometimes you need to go through pain to learn and grow, and I think we are going through one of those. Base jumping, when I started, was very amateur, let's say, friends helping each other, things like this. Then it got professionalized. I think the professionalization brought some improvements at the beginning because I've seen the knowledge increase. I've seen people being more prepared. I've seen people starting on the appropriate objects rather than getting a PCA from the local antenna by their friends. And I think it brought a lot of positive into the sport. In the last 2 years, and I don't like painting a dark picture, but unfortunately, I think in the last 2 years, we went through something that in the last 2 years, I've seen abuse. Okay, abuse from educators. I've witnessed a lot of people doing things that we all consider unethical or not appropriate for progression because there is money in that activity. And unfortunately, by acting that way, they are giving reason to the people who are criticizing courses, saying, "Oh, money is going to fuck the sport." I didn't think it was true. I think professionalizing the sport was going to bring knowledge, but unfortunately, with today's exaggeration, those people are right. Money is fucking the sport. I see official first jump courses that take people with 0 skydives. I see more and more first jump courses taking people directly in wingsuit from the cliff. I've seen all kind of shortcuts approved by official structures for money. And I started, it's not happening since a long time. I think it's been 2 years that I see this abuse. And I started predicting 2 years ago what was going to happen. I said, we are going to have an increase in fatality with people with low jumps wearing wingsuits. And it happened. I predicted some exits were going to get a burn, and it happened. We lost the Croatian bridge. Not because of
the abuse of instructors.
Not because of the abuse of instructors, but just because of the increase of number. It was meant to happen. Fatality was meant to happen on that bridge. I think that we took a very dangerous path now, and we start seeing the consequences, and we should take action before these consequences get bigger.
So when schools are burning, sorry, I was going to use French there, brûler les étapes. When they're going ahead of the normal progression, is it because they just want to have more students, which equal to more money? Because it seems like there's a lot of people that are getting into jumping right now, or is it just more is always better when you're a greedy person?
I think... So I know personally pretty much everyone, and I see people taking students in a way that goes completely against from what they were defending before. So apart from money, what has changed? Why did they change their mind? For me, it's clearly greed and money. And short term, you're winning, but on the long term, everybody's going to lose.
Understand.
It's really important. I think that in life, balance is important. Balance in your personal life, balance in the way you're jumping. You want to be charging, but not too much. You must have balance in your diet. All life works with balance, and we must find balance in the professional side of the sport by saying, okay, we can make money, but not make money whatever way, no matter the consequences.
Is there any system of accountability amongst instructors? Like, do you guys self-police? Do you look at each other and criticize, or is it just pretty much anything goes?
Pretty much everything goes. We disagree. Everyone like talks at the bar, but there is no real discussion between the schools, and there is anyway no policing of something that there is no federation, no control over what we do. So people people criticize while having a beer, and nothing happens.
So there's a lot of people that are base curious that listen to this podcast. So I think it's important that we talk about what are the advantages of not going straight into a wingsuit. And like, I have to be honest, I've not directly going straight into a wingsuit, but introducing a wingsuit earlier than what was conventional wisdom made some sense in my mind because of the... you have, particularly in the United States, you have some really high-level skydivers that are spending thousands of hours or thousands of jumps in their wingsuits. And is it still appropriate to send them off of a cliff in a tracksuit, for example? And I think that this is, clearly based on the base fatality list this year alone, that's not a good idea. But maybe we can have you get into some of the specifics about why it's important to take advantage of this period when you should be tracking.
So the main argument I hear about people taking shortcut is, I have that many wingsuit skydives and I feel much better in my wingsuit. Great, but the control of the wingsuit, the control of your tool, makes for 10% of what's important in the jump. Knowing how to push off an exit, knowing the aerology, the conditions, how to read terrain, how to analyze your trajectories. This is what makes the difference between life and death in wingsuit base jumping. And this is all knowledge from base jumping, not from skydiving. So when you arrive mastering the tool, you have control over 10% of your jump. You still need to learn the 90%. And you need to learn this 90% by doing jumps at an easy level where you don't have much to deal with in a tracking suit or slick. You learn how to push on different types of uphill, on gravels, downhill, with one foot, with the left foot. You learn how to deal with a scorpion without you having your arms attached. You learn how it feels to be matching the terrain in your track and having a little bit less ground rush, but still enough ground rush to notice, unlike with the wingsuit. You have a lot of like technical things that are worked in the tracking that is going to be useful, that is preparing you for wingsuit. And also doing this homework gives you the time to be around base jumpers, to hear stories at the bar or during the hikes that are going to teach you. It gives you a chance to be around carnage and notice how serious this thing is. Taking the time in the tracking environment is crucial for me. Crucial.
There's one thing to read the BFL, and there's another to be at the bar when someone goes in and actually see the results of that, and also, meet that person, see some common trends that lead up into that. And for me, that's way more powerful than actually just reading about it on a list. It just seems a little bit obscure in a way.
Exactly. But base jumping is not that technical and difficult. It's mainly decision making. You don't need to be a ninja flyer to be a base jumper, but you need to make good decisions. And you haven't learned how to make good decisions in the sky. Quite the opposite, actually.
In skydiving.
Yeah. You learn, in skydiving, you don't have much decisions to make, to be honest, because it's a very controlled sport. And it's not even related to base jumping. You know how to use the tool, but now you need to learn how to make good decisions, and you learn those by observing others in the sport and by making mistakes in an environment that is not too sketchy yet, and that is way simpler to understand, which is the tracking environment. And this is not a loss of time, because you learn so much and you have so much fun in the process. Sometimes people are talking to me, they want the shortcut so bad, they want the wingsuit so bad that they're talking about the tracking progression like I'm making them eat a bowl of shit. man, I'm telling you to do running exits hand in hands with your friend, screaming like a maniac and throw yourself off a cliff in a beautiful area of France. How difficult is that? How am I punishing you? You know, it's like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Right.
Like,
yeah, it's sick.
Damn.
I could see how some people may have some difficulty seeing that because they're standing at their first mountain exit and their instructors, everyone else that's been in the sport for a while is in a wingsuit. And so it's sort of like, oh, okay, that's what I want to get to. But the fact is that having some variety in your jumping is what really keeps it fresh. And so if you've been doing years of tracking, the wingsuit, it starts to become another challenge. And
Exactly. I started wingsuiting with 1,300 base jumps. And those base jumps were not boring. I had so much fun. I did a lot of urban jumps. You're standing on top of a building in the night, nobody knows you're there. You free fall past balconies, you feel like Batman. It's cool. I did a lot of tracking when you have the freedom to do running exits, to do some dumb stuff, to do some aerials. You go to Norway exit where you're going to track for like 45 seconds more. Then I discovered all different type of onesies. I jumped slick. There is so much cool stuff to do before the wingsuit.
Yeah.
And again, it prepares you for the wingsuiting. Come on, have some fun. Be a bit of a clown before being a guy that just wears his suit and look at his flight site numbers. Just have fun. There is so much more to it.
You did a whole video about you're not ready for a onesie yet. And this is maybe even breaking down the tracking element into subcategories with the two-piece being one, slick being one before that, and then the onesie after that, or the one-piece tracking suit. Why are a lot of people who are going to onesies not prepared for that suit yet?
So let's be clear. A onesie is a wingsuit. It takes you on the same kind of lines. When I started wingsuiting, I started from the cliff with a Havoc. I was flying not as far as a onesie. It's a mistake to think I'm going to take these big suits and it's going to be safer than wingsuiting because my arms are free. But guess what? It's taking you on the same kind of lines as wingsuiting. The difference is that wingsuiting kind of impresses people and they kind of do the homework before getting there and they understand what they're getting themselves into. The onesie gives a false sense of security because of the free arms, but it is actually the same as wingsuiting. And the whole point of that video was showing all the decision-making that comes into onesie flying. And I just wanted to show that it must be taken as seriously as wingsuiting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I almost think that they're harder to fly sometimes than wingsuits. You have a much smaller surface area that you can balance on. And there's the angle in which you can fly is also more limited, so that those things when they stall, you're stalled out.
Yeah, so you have the bigger the suit, the bigger the range of flight is, and theoretically the easier and safer it is to a certain point. If you take a onesie that has a smaller surface than a wingsuit, you of course have less control than a wingsuit, but it is easier to fly than a two-piece, for example, and it's more stable than a two-piece. So for people that go from two-piece, where they're going nowhere, and it's very unstable and hard to hold, to onesie suddenly feels like the safest tool ever. But again, the problem is that they underestimate it. And I think a solid two-piece tracking progression is the key to longevity in base, because it's going to teach you about the environment and you're going to develop some skills because it's hard to fly, and your way of flying, your inputs are going to be much more precise if you've been a good two-piece tracker before.
So there's something about energy management too, right? Especially at the exit, about building speed on your starts.
Yeah, so energy management is the key to flying in base jumping, no matter the suit you have. And since it's harder and more demanding in a two-piece, it teaches you how to be more precise, and then you will be more precise in bigger suits.
Sorry, go ahead.
So no, that was pretty much it. You wanted to go more into detail into something?
No, not necessarily. I think we can move on from that.
Okay.
Is there anything about tracking at all that you want to talk about?
No, just have fun.
Yeah, let's just have fun. It's funny too, because like when you go back to tracking after doing hundreds of wingsuit jumps or years, it's so like it feels so goofy and just so fun. Like everybody's giggling and laughing, and yeah, it's
terrifying. No, it's terrifying. I did a lot. I have nearly 1,000 tracking jumps.
Yeah.
And if I try to track today, it works, but I'm terrified at the exit.
Yeah, like, well, you don't get free fall in wingsuits mostly. Like, if you're jumping into onto a sunny face, and there's some lift, and you have a good start, like, there's almost no sense of free fall.
No, not at all. You just feel the suit inflating around you, and you have basically no input, and it flies for you.
Yeah.
I did a slick jump last year for the first time in a very long time. I went up Torre Trieste, and it felt like a suicide. It felt I threw myself, and I felt it's like, okay, I have no control whatsoever on what I'm doing. The cliff is not moving away. The ground is coming really fast. I was terrified from the first second of free fall, and I was like, holy shit, what's going on? I have no control on my jump. I did what I thought was the biggest delay ever. I was like, I have to hold it at least 20 seconds. And in the end, I did 8. I mean, I don't know if I was flying backwards, but I didn't have much forward movement. I was like, holy fuck. When you don't do something for a while, well, you become very bad at it.
You were standing at the exit thinking like you're like Fred and Vince and Noah, and you could do some free fly exit, and you'd be a total stud.
I was we went with a heli, and in the heli I was thinking what kind of because there is a big verticality, what kind of aerials I was going to send. Then I arrived on the edge and I was like, well, flat and stable looks like good enough, And then I did it. I don't want to insult tracking and call that a track, but Fred commented on my video with laughing emojis. It broke my heart, but, I was like, oh, well, at least the view was nice.
Yeah. There's levels to this game. So let's go back to the state of education, and you mentioned that you were seeing some schools or some people that were talking about being vocal about what was appropriate progression, and then their actions were different. And then the fact that there's no accountability, how do you see us moving forward as an industry?
I think there must be a discussion between the schools to set some minimal requirements for starting base jumping, for starting wingsuiting, and that we should agree on which exits are appropriate. We should agree on what should be covered during a course. We should, what could be covered in terms of like exercises, but also theoretical knowledge. And we must set higher standards. And we must set standards alone, some sort of standards. We need to do it, because if we don't do that, carnage is going to increase. And we're going to be regulated, not by us, but by some higher authority which doesn't understand the sport. And it's going to get complicated. So self-regulate before we get regulated is very important.
That's interesting. I think that's quite a challenge, right? Because we don't have a governing body, don't have any rules whatsoever. Are you for some sort of regulation within base jumping?
Deep inside, it makes me sad if there is some kind of regulation, but I think now it's necessary. We've seen consequences of our actions starting a bit everywhere. We just lost the Croatian bridge. The French bridge has a law since a year and a half now against base jumping. So it's not enforced yet, but the law exists, and anytime they can enforce it. So you can consider the French bridge also burn. And since you can see the volume of people of Croatia already going to the French bridge to teach, I think it's going to be completely burned within a year. That's my prediction. Urban jumping in France used to be just a little slap on the wrist, but now in Paris and all its region, they passed a law against base jumping. Okay, you can get fined, and it's mentioned, base jumping is mentioned in the law. Maglan now is at risk because of the fatalities that involve public on the road and in a house
Just
in the last month. Brévent and Aiguille du Midi closed because of a fatality that happened in the middle of the city. We are already losing a lot of places, and we are going to lose more if we don't do something. And I think at an individual level, people should ask themselves what is the consequences of the action. I think that at a professional level, schools should start considering being more selective and more accountable with who they take into the sport. And I think we should really respect the work of local associations, whether it's the IBA in Brento, the Swiss-based association in Lauterbrunnen and stuff, because those people are working for free and they have the worst role you can imagine, because they get the hate from the jumpers, who call them rule makers. I've heard Nazi. I heard base jumping is so gay with all the rules. They get shit from the jumpers, and they get shit from authorities whenever there is a problem. They're getting yelled at, and they are in between. They are the ones that are saving the sport and maintaining exits open. Yes, they are the most poorly treated people in that activity. I think, for starter, before we get regulated, the work of local association is what could maintain us alive. And I recommend to be really respectful for these people, because the day they stop their work, we're going to be banned everywhere. Because now Brento is questioning some people are questioning the presence of the IBA ground crew. With the work that Marco is doing in Brento, I can guarantee that if he disappears, Brento disappears within 2 years. I'm sure of that. Nobody realizes how much work he's putting on a daily basis. He's not only counting the number of seconds you do under canopy, he's talking to people, he's helping out with technical advice, he's chatting with the locals that are mad at us because of the parking tarps, because of the way we are parked, he's maintaining the peace. He's talking to the authorities so we get the grass cut on the landing and we keep that landing legal. There is so much work those people are doing, and they are not rewarded enough, and they often get shit from the community. I think it's time to start respecting the work of these people, because they are maintaining the exits open.
I was thinking that I would address the people who are saying there's so many rules. It's just clearly somebody who hasn't been around long enough to see the consequences of our own actions. Nobody likes to be told what to do, and everybody who's base jumping is looking for this freedom experience. There has to be some give and thought about us as a group. Unfortunately, that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, well, you have some. The concept of freedom is being used and abused all over the internet. There is a debate. You have people, often either beginners or people who've been around for a while but don't jump that much and are just very present online, that are like, oh, my freedom, this and that, and everyone wants to be a gangster and an anarchist and show off. But it's important to understand concepts when you use them, Freedom is not showing the middle finger and stepping on everything, doing whatever the fuck you want. Your freedom stops where someone else's freedom starts. Freedom is blending in your environment so things function. Okay, because if we're going to start a fight trying to see who's stronger, we are worthless. We don't represent an economical drive whatsoever. We just create carnage, and we bring nothing to a community, to the cities. So we're going to lose. We are just going to lose. And it's important to understand that self-regulation with rules will give us more freedom than the regulation of authorities if we don't want to have rules within our community. I had a guy like using the concept of anarchy, you know, like talking about anarchy, and he's an anarchist, etc. So he don't go by the rules. Again, when you use a concept, it's important to understand it completely. Anarchy was never about chaos and doing whatever the fuck you want. The concept of anarchy is that you assume that the humans are reasonable enough to self-regulate, therefore they don't need the rules of a higher authority. And this is exactly what we're trying to do, is self-regulating. Anarchy as rules enforced by us, not by a higher authority. So if you're going to use the concept of anarchy, respect the fucking rules of the places where you jam.
So we touched on accountability, and one of the tools that I think can be used in terms of accountability, and I'd like your thought on this, is the base fatality list, because I think that this is really a place where we all go to learn lessons in a way where the greatest mistakes of our sport are presented. And well, I think we should take this in a few different directions. One, the overall way that the base fatality is operated. And then two, some of the information that may be helpful for schools, new students, the rest of the community inside of the base fatality list. First, let's talk about how do you think the way it's being run at the moment and the kind of information that is provided is working?
I think first that Pato is doing an incredible job, because taking all that drama and sadness regularly during the year must be tough mentally, and I would not like to be doing what he freaking does, man. It's crazy work. I think that people lately have been confusing the fatality list with a memorial, and you can see people just paying their respect and tribute to the deceased, and shutting down people who want to talk about the technical debates or point out the mistakes that were made. I think it's a shame, because I don't mind people paying their tributes, but I think it's important to learn from those accidents so we don't repeat them. And for that, we need to have clear debriefs, no matter if it's offensive to the friends of the disease. It's not about disrespect. It's pointing out what went wrong so it does not go wrong again. And I think that the BFL accidents should be used to question your own practice and learn. People are using the BFL often to confirm their own practice and reassure themselves, instead of thinking, that went wrong, I could do the same, what should I change for it not to happen to me? They're thinking, oh, well, I'm doing this part different, so it's not going to happen to me. And they use it as a comforting tool instead of facing the fact that they can potentially fuck up as well.
Yeah.
And you have to look at every accident with the assumption that it is going to happen to you, so you can question your own practice. This is the only way to go forward, and I don't think people are using it that way.
Yeah, the sense of plausible deniability, I think, is present in all types of aviation and air sports. And I think maybe a good rule of thumb is, while commenting on the BFL, is that there should be a purpose behind it. There should be some sort of, of course, this is an emotional time, and I think that we should all read it with a level of forgiveness and empathy, because many people have just lost an acquaintance or friend, and this is it's tragedy. However, I think in order for us to not have to sift through a load of garbage, that every comment on there should have a purpose, and that purpose should be focused on trying to better our sense of where we are, what mistakes can be made, and so that others don't follow.
Exactly. And I think we should also talk about the last 6 months of jumping of the person. This is an element that is missing because we are on the BFL, we are only talking about the accident itself, but generally the accident doesn't magically happen. An accident is something you plan long in advance, and you can see a tendency of the people going in that direction. It's very easy when you have a bit of experience to see who's going in this year. And you have to talk about the global tendency of the jumpers on top of the accident, because the accident, well, I slipped off the exit. You know, what does that tell you? Oh, don't go and slippery exit. What's important is to say, okay, what was the practice of this jumper? Oh, he was only doing short start. He was low experience. He was this. And this teaches you more than the accident itself.
God, it's like always like, well, yeah, you know, it's like, yeah, what the fuck did you think?
Yeah.
I'm wondering how you think that the BFL could reflect that sense of like, instead of it just being a comment of like, hey, we all told them, we could all see it coming, nobody's surprised. Is there something that you could think of that's a little bit more constructive in terms of how we include that into the BFL?
I do not have the answer for that. It's an interesting question. But until I find the answer, I think it's important to leave the comments open on the BFL and to allow people to talk about what they've witnessed about that person in the past month. And it's not disrespect. It's just saying the truth about a practice so we can learn from it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if you haven't noticed, the comments are now open again, and there is a few moderators now who will be there making sure that there isn't a bunch of garbage that's tossed onto this.
I know Pato wanted to close them, and we had a private discussion, and I begged him to leave them open because for me now I don't see base jumping anymore as a community as a whole, but more like a lot of little circles that don't necessarily communicate with each other, because we became too big. And I told Pato, the BFL is our last space of discussion where we get a whole community together talking again. So it's very important that we leave it open. And I'm very happy. He didn't agree with the initial idea, but he changed his mind and took moderator. So thank you, Pato.
Yeah, man. Agree with him or not, the work that he does is extensive, and it's not glamorous.
I would not like to do it, man.
No, me neither.
The day he quits, I'm not the one taking over for sure.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think if it was an ideal situation, it would be like a panel of people. For one, there doesn't need to be speed in the report anymore. There's nothing new that's being learned. And while speed, I think maybe back in like 2015, 16 was important because it was just happening with so much frequency. And there was a lot of lessons being learned with modern wingsuits. I don't think that's the case anymore. And I think it's more important now that we get it right than get it fast.
Just like in journalism.
Yeah. Moving on. Accountability in schools. And this is, I think, another element of the BFL. And this is not a very well-processed thought, but there's one thing that I do see now as there's more and more professional schools is people dying or having accidents during a course, whether it be a course where they're, an introductory course, a first jump course, or they're being guided. I think it's important that people know when someone dies under the instruction of somebody.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's relevant to mention when someone goes in under the supervision of an instructor. Fingers crossed it never happens to me, but I think it's important to be accountable for that. The other part you mentioned, and that I've seen online a lot, was mentioning the school of everyone that dies, regardless if they were in the course or not. That I don't agree with, because I don't think it's a relevant metric.
Sorry, so what you're saying is like for every base fatality entry, their school could be mentioned?
So that's what some people have been bringing up online lately, which again will not hurt me because so far I have 0 students or ex-students that went in. and it will probably change because this is how base jumping works. But for all people that have tried to stir up that, I would like to ask, how long am I responsible for my students? If someone goes in after 3 years of base jumping, doing something that I don't recommend, do I need to have my name associated to his death, forever on the internet? I think this is people trying to find a scapegoat here, but it's not a relevant metric. First, because it doesn't take into account how many jumpers a school bring into the sport. If I take 15 first jump course students a year and LTBJ takes 80, for sure they're going to have more names in the BFL than me because of numbers. It's simple. Does that mean they're a bad school? So it's already not relevant. I think, though, the question is interesting because it brings the question of the responsibility of schools. How are you responsible of people in that sport? And now you have some people that have been opening that possibility to put the name of the school on the BFL are basically telling that you're responsible for everything that happens to the person if you initiate it in the sport, which I personally disagree with. When you're a business and you offer a service, you either have an obligation of results or an obligation of means. Okay, putting the name of people of the school, in the BFL means you consider that the school has an obligation of results, which is impossible to achieve in a sport where you cannot guarantee that it's always going to go well. Shit can happen. Risk zero does not exist. The only thing we can do in base jumping is try to minimize the risk as much as we can. And this is obligation of means. I'm all about controlling and regulating schools, but under the obligation of means. Question being, has the school done everything they could to help that person? Did they respect the minimal requirements for that sport? Did they learn about all the theory you need to know about base jumping during the course? Did they perform all the safety exercises at the bridge or in Brento, etc.? What is the experience of the instructor? You can do all of that and still have a student going in, because you cannot have an obligation of result, but you have an obligation of means, and this obligation of means is not respected in not the majority, but a few schools, and I think that starting with that will already be good enough.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. It's not a viable metric, but I think I would invite people who are listening to this, if their friend is on a course and they get into a school that is below the minimum suggested requirements and they go in shortly thereafter, they should mention that, because that is the only way we're going to have accountability if it's widely known.
Exactly. We need to know. We will need to unite between the people that have the highest requirements and agree with those requirements, and we need to put ourselves at the same level so we can speak up together about what is right and why it is right. And then, people will still have the freedom to shortcut with their students, but at least a majority has spoken, and the people that will go to schools with lower standard know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah.
It's all we can do. We don't have a federation, we don't have the power to act on this, but at least we can unite together if we have the same ideas and speak up.
Yeah, all we have is the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could talk about this. We could run around in circles discussing this, but there's a certain element of... I was going to say that there's these comments on the base fatality list about, but he was such a great guy, and I'm so shocked that this has happened. And then you find out that they're in their first season of base jumping, flying an aura. And, This is, risk sounding like a bunch of old guys complaining about the new generation. But at the same time, this level of ignorance around the sport and the acceptable madness that some people are approaching this with, I personally see it as a complete disrespect for our activity. And I think that someone who, there's many facets to a person, and I don't believe in bad people necessarily, just bad actions. Mm-hmm. But when you, particularly in the state of our activity right now and how at risk it is with our sites, with countries at the official level discussing banning wingsuiting, banning base jumping in their communities. If you come into our sport and within a year are flying a wingsuit at technical exit points, you're an asshole. You're an asshole because you're putting everything that we have been working towards at risk. There's associations that dedicate their time to keeping sites open. There are schools that are dedicating their lives. There are instructors like David here who spend countless hours discussing with their students, discussing with local authorities how to continue this. And you're putting all of that at risk because you don't have the patience to do it correctly.
Oh, exactly. I think it's okay to shame people, when they do shit. The same way we were shamed back in the days. You have no idea how many times at my beginnings I got told off for videos I was posting, for day blazing a building. I did stupid stuff too, but I didn't get away with it. I got burned, and oh my God, what an uncomfortable feeling. I hated it. So I didn't do it again. And even though at the time I didn't understand why people were so vocal, years later I'm like, oh, they were right.
Yeah.
I was an idiot. And I think it's okay to give feedback to beginners. It's okay to make a mistake, but you need to hear the consequences of your mistake. And I don't know now if you say something, it's just like, oh, you're being disrespectful or freedom or and you're offensive. No, fuck you. You need to hear it. We can only progress with clear feedbacks, no sugarcoating. We need to hear it. It's important. And again, I think that schools here, again, have a responsibility. I don't think we are saying, oh, the new generation is crazy. Jeb has compared them lately online to suicide bombers and talk about mental illness. I agree the new generation is crazy, but I don't think the world suddenly became crazy. I think that all jumpers today, yesterday, 10, 15 years ago, everyone wanted to take shortcuts at some point, but you had more experienced people that were giving you shit if you were stepping in the wrong direction. Now, money has come into the sport, and those experienced people that are supposed to give you the hard talk, they're smiling at you and taking the money instead and enabling you to do that shit. And this is where the problem is. I don't think base jumpers are different today. I just think they are enabled to do crazy things instead of being told off. And this is the responsibility of people with more experience, of the older guys.
Let's talk about caring about your students, because I think that this comes out in certain different facets. And one of them is your own personal sustainability. And because I've seen that that's a line that you've been walking, not always successfully. And I know from discussions we've had in the past about how much you care about your students and how they are like, you are their mentor, and the relationship continues after the course, and you check in with them and you worry about them. You want to help them continue on along the way, but at a certain time is limited and emotional capacity is limited. Tell me about that.
When I started doing the course 7 years ago, Dominique Loyen, who himself had a base course back in the days, told me that I was too emotionally involved and that I would burn out at some point. And I did burn out last year. But at the same time, I don't know how to do anything in life without passion. Doing base courses is not only about money. It for sure sustains my lifestyle. But if you think about it, it's a very stupid way to make an income. There's so much risk involved, so much stress, you know? If it was only about money, I mean, I have the qualification to do jobs that pay at least as much as base courses. Maybe with a bit more work, but I should do something else. I am doing that because I take joy from it, because I'm happy to see them happy after they land the first time, because I'm proud to see them progress, because I get emotions from it. So if I remove the emotional side and I just become cold and dissociated from my students, I'd rather do something else, because I've lost the passion and I've ruined my sport. So I did burn out last year. And for sure, you need to kind of protect yourself. But if I cannot bring passion into my courses anymore, I will do something else for sure.
So what I hear from you is that in order to be a good instructor, there has to be a level of empathy to have this positive feedback loop on feeling a sense of satisfaction with watching them grow and develop. But then at a certain point that too much can be compromising.
Oh, totally. I mean, you need to have empathy and you need to care. People are coming to you not just as clients, but this is for them an achievement, something they've been dreaming of for years. You are going to give them an experience that they will remember their entire life. You're going to be their instructor in their head forever. It will be so sad to expect that kind of emotion and experience and be with someone that doesn't care about you. You will be ruining the experience of the person. So I think it's important to have that level of empathy, to care about people. And you just have to find balance. Like, where do you stop caring? You know, and for me, I've done a few adjustments in the years. You know, I used to communicate with students that had, because you have a certain amount of people that disrespect your rules or go do something completely crazy. And I used to, you know, talk to them like years later, get involved no matter what they did. And now I just put a limit where if you have like once or twice completely disrespected my recommendations and you don't seem to care, I just cut the communication. You know, I'm going to give my energy to someone that is willing to listen. So I preserve myself a little bit that way, but I still care about people in the course and I still care about people after. I just don't run after people that are clearly disrespectful. They can go their own way.
Do you remember a friend or someone that you respected spoke to you with a critical voice during your progression or even recently that was effective?
Yeah. I mean, so many times I've been put back into my place, you know, a lot at the beginning, a little bit less in the future, in the following years. Yeah. This year, I've been told off by a friend for my way of flying that had become a bit more radical, a bit different than what I was doing before. And he told me clearly, like, your way of flying has changed. You are taking way more risk. You are putting yourself in that category now. I mean, he said it in a way more harsh way, but you know, I faced a friend like telling me off, like this summer.
How'd that feel?
I was not used to it anymore. My first reaction was to get defensive and be annoyed about how he was talking to me, and very quickly I was like, whoa, I'm reacting like the people who I tell something to and are being defensive as well. So I had to reopen my mind and think, oh yeah, okay, he's right. Am I going to change my way of flying? I still want to do that kind of flying, but I should be aware of what I'm doing and maybe do it not too often, etc. So I did make an adjustment after that talk. It's really funny to see that myself got defensive as everyone else. I just having been in the position of telling people more often, I switch quicker to opening my mind to the criticism.
You notice the pattern.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm thankful to the friend who say that, because it's important to give each other feedbacks. And I gave him feedbacks to the same friend in 2016 when he was going completely crazy, and it actually changed his path. So, we as a friend, as an instructor, as a fellow base jumper, you need to say the hard things to your mates, and it's not always pleasant, and it's not necessarily the most sexy role, but it's important that we communicate. It's like, I don't know, rather than just not saying anything and see the people burning in something that was totally avoidable.
As someone who's just received some critical feedback, do you have any thoughts on how we can continue to, breed this culture of common respect and encourage feedback? It's tough, man.
It's a tough one. It has to do with the base culture and how do we maintain that base culture. How do we keep communicating with each other in a sport where that is getting bigger? The bigger something is, the harder the communication is, because there is no connection between everyone, because we gather less than we used to do. I remember there used to be so many reasons to assemble base jumpers, regular massive barbecues in Lauterbrunnen with 40, 50 people, events, that were run by local associations or by brands and stuff. All those kind of disappeared with COVID, and we never started doing them again. So maybe we need to give back the people the will to be part of a community, if we can call it a community. Right now, we are less and less connected with each other. Therefore, someone's opinion doesn't really matter. You have your group of friends and you just can't go your way. We are missing that sense of belonging together, of being a community. And it has kind of existed. Even if people are kind of romanticizing it too much, we did have something. And if we had more gatherings, more fun stuff to share together as a big group, suddenly people will not be so disconnected from each other and will care more about opinions. There will be more human contact, and maybe we could give an incentive of willing to be part of that community and do the right thing. I'm thinking something like Turkey Boogie is a good example for me. It's still a gathering that happens, that reunites people together, sharing jumps together, making a huge party together.
Canceled.
No.
Yeah.
What? Damn, you're reading my speech. It's cancelled. Oh no, that makes me very sad.
Yeah.
There used to be, for me, it was something. Oh damn, man, I didn't know.
Well, I mean, in its current iteration, there's just too much impact. There's too many people showing up, and we've ruined that one too.
Oh no. Well, fuck.
Yeah.
I think it's man, it's base jumping used to be a lifestyle, and it became a sport, and it will never be what it was again. But we need to bring again that feeling of belonging to something, because this is the only way to create human interaction and the will to do the right thing in people. I don't know if that was clear.
Yeah, no, I think what you're saying is that accountability only comes when you have that actual real life interaction with people.
Exactly.
We've had some pretty heavy discussions here now. I'm wondering if we could lighten it up a little bit with some fun stuff.
Yay.
You've been skydiving a lot, and it's paying off in your wingsuiting. I could see you doing some really nice acro jumps. And tell me, just how's that going? First off, how many people told you so, and then how long did it take you to get there? And
yeah, so I mean, I had to build up a big enough base jumping experience before trying skydiving. No, I was like, so I'm someone to, because I think that for people who don't know me, they're not going to understand why it's funny, but I started base jumping self-taught with 90 skydives, which is not what I recommend. And because I've done it, I know why it's not the right thing to do. And for many years, I stayed around that amount of jumps. I didn't skydive for nearly 10 years. And I just progressed in base jumping. And I always say that I had zero interest in skydiving and that I will never wingsuit. So it's funny to now see me raging in the wingsuit and investing so much money into skydiving lately. But I'm having so much fun. And sometimes it's okay to change your mind, you know?
absolutely.
It's called evolution. No, I'm having a blast, man. I'm discovering so many new things. I just don't want to sound like, oh, I've done it all in base jumping. Sounds a bit arrogant, but damn, I kind of covered the topic already. And apart from repeating the same but more dangerous, I don't see what more I can explore. I can keep enjoying it, but I cannot evolve that much more, you know? In skydiving, I'm seeing my progression every day because I haven't explored that area, so there is so much to discover, and I just like I see an evolution, and I think the key to happiness in life is change and evolution, and this is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, I hear you talking about like growth. I'm just going to throw this back to you because I had this conversation recently with someone who was pushing at the very limits of wingsuit base jumping, and he said that at a certain point he felt like he had kind of come to his tolerance for risk, and that there's no he didn't see any direction past that. He continues to jump, but has maintains a level of almost dissatisfaction because he cannot continue to improve. And he said, rather than being unsatisfied, he jumps less now and pursues other sports where he feels like there's a lot of growth. Do you think that there's something to that? Does that resonate with you too, that you need to continue to develop in other areas to have a sense of satisfaction?
1,000%. You know, it's so I started questioning my base jumping about 2 years ago and thinking, okay, where am I going? How many people survive base jumping for 20 plus years? Not that many. What is the profile and type of jumping on those people? And I saw two categories. You have people who keep taking very high risk, but don't base jump a lot. Robert Pechnik, for example, doesn't do that many jumps a year and sends like a motherfucker at every single jump. And then you have people that do a lot of jumping, Maurizio, James Bull, but keep it very mellow. And in wingsuiting, where I consider myself quite conservative, they're even more mellow than me. And I realized that for surviving, I needed to be part of one of those two categories, that I could not continue with my type of jumping doing the amount of jump I was performing if I wanted to survive 20, 30 years. So I want to keep having fun, but to keep having fun, I need to diversify myself and do less base jumping. So my goal, which is hard to achieve because I'm doing courses and coaching, but my goal will be to get under 100 base jumps a year, which is not achievable right now, but at least get as close as possible from 100 base jump a year rather than charging too hard. And I need to lower my exposure, my time of exposure to risk if I want to live long enough. And for for having the strength to not go jumping too much, I need to find interest in other disciplines. And for me, this is skydiving where I'm finding novelty and progress.
That's interesting. You know, I completely respect people who are pushing the boundaries of their sport in a calculated and knowledgeable way. And I don't want to feel like I'm, criticizing anyone, because if people who understand what's at risk and are pushing the boundaries, more power to them, But me, as someone who has a lot to lose, I'm looking for that balance too. I'm looking to continue to enjoy this, because I love it. And, but I'm also looking for that sense of personal satisfaction. And then also, being around to enjoy my kids growing up.
Man, longevity is cool. There is a guy that I gave a safety talk in the US last year, and some guy made a meme of me saying, you either die a hero or live long enough to become the safety guy. And I was like, well, you know what? Being the safety guy and just drinking wine with your mates in the Dolomites, and it's fucking cool, mate. We need to explain to younger people how cool it is to get older, see all stuff, and keep enjoying some wild thing, but burning in, being a supercharger and being forgotten 5 years later by the entire community is not cool at all. Make longevity cool again.
We need a red hat for that. That's something I just want to touch on real briefly before we move on, is that you're forgotten. There's this term, I think, legends never die. And if you think about, when was the last time you heard Poli's name mentioned? When was the last time,
It's funny that you mentioned Poli, because I use him at every course. I was like, so guys, do you remember Alex Poli? And all my students look at me and say, who? And I'm like, exactly. He was a person, his level of popularity in the base jumping community was something like, we will not see again. Everyone knew who Poli was. When he entered the room, you will notice Poli. He's forgotten, completely forgotten by everybody. You will never achieve his level of popularity, so it's not worth charging and killing yourself trying to be someone, because you will never be a legend. People are forgotten so quickly. So quickly.
Yeah. So we are getting depressing again.
Ah, damn. Maybe this is what happens to all base jumper after a while. We're like, we always end up at the bar rambling.
Salty.
It's either talking about the dead friends or some story about pooping in the nature. I don't know. It's just come back to those two topics all the time. All the time.
So before we're out of time, there's something I'd like to leave with, and is, who do you see that comes to your course that is just really well prepared? What are the steps ahead of getting to the course that seem to make people really prepared? Is it, the kind of career that they have, their personality, the way that they learn? What sets somebody up for success?
Curiosity. If you are curious, you are likely to understand the sport and do the right thing. I don't think, there is not much I ask people in terms of preparation, because the course is designed to prepare people. So the less you try to do, the better it works for me, because you are an empty canvas and I can paint on it. If you try to over-prepare and try to do your own packing and your own training and your own canopy thing, you're actually making my life harder. So do your skydiving, not only tracking to prepare for base, do everything, free fly, belly fly, do formation, do stupid jumps, and just be curious, how a reserve works, how parachute deployment works. Just keep asking questions and don't try to over-prepare yourself. Just come with an open mind. Be an empty canvas and let me paint on it, please.
Cool. I think this is a great place to end. Maybe we could end this with a story about one of your favorite jumps.
It's people often ask what's your favorite jump, and it's an impossible question to answer, because it's like I've been living in Willy Wonka factory for 13 years and you're asking me what's the best chocolate. Like every new discovery, every new achievement, new visuals were an amazing jump. So it's impossible to look back in the past and choose one. But I think that what you should look forward is the future, and the best jump is always the next one. So stay alive.
Damn. Powerful way to end. Thanks, brother. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks a lot for the chat, buddy.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any thoughts about what you've just heard, please don't hesitate to hit us up. A big shout out to Mark Stockwell, our sound mixer and co-producer. We love you, man. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, please visit exitpointpodcast.com. See you on the next one.